Hey folks, welcome back. Chris Garlock here with Michael Redmond, Nine Don Professional, in our latest AlphaGo versus the world. Down to our last few, and we have yet another new player, right, Michael?
Yes. It's Cho Han-sung from Korea,
Hmm.
one of the most prominent Korean players, actually.
Yeah,
He was born in 1982, so at the time of this game, he's almost 35, I guess.
it's old man, an old man, buddy.
Among this group, yes, he is an old man. So, shall we go into the game?
We shall. Let's do it.
Actually, when we look at this position,
We
you
haven't
might
seen this
notice that
before.
we've been here before, right? Um, and AlphaGo has black.
Mm,
It's interesting that even though white played a star point in the lower left corner, like usually when AlphaGo plays this large knight's corner enclosure, it was after white had played, um, just to change the order here. Quite often white would play the upper left corner, and instead of this move, white would be playing a 3-4 point.
mm,
And so this is what we've been seeing a lot of, something like this.
right.
So in this position, it is slightly different because white has a star point, and quite often you would see AlphaGo was giving various answers at this point. So it was free to play here or to play a Kakari, I think. There was actually a game where I think it played a low Shimari. So
Mm,
it was giving a lot of various answers to this board position. I think the more modern programs tend to like this move best. And I think that was true of Master later in its development.
hmm.
And I think it's true of AlphaGo Zero most of the time too.
Hmm.
But in this game, it's playing the large knights move. And here, you'll remember I was most of the time I've been talking about how I like the attachment at the
Yep,
start point.
yep.
Um, so I'm going to go into something slightly different here because this is kind of a repeat. So in this game, I'll talk about this move, which is another option that white has.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
With this move, white can play here in the double hane, and um, and this is the turning point where white connects. Black can push through here or connect. So if black connects, now is a point where white is sort of hesitant whether to play an extension on the side or to push. But the suggested move is to push here. Oh, sorry, it wasn't the push. This is where white has the choice here. If white pushes, black's going to play here, and I find this position sort of easy for black. It's what black is doing is easier for me to understand. Taking away white space, making a moyo in the lower right, this still is one of the options that white has, and it would turn into something like this. So I keep coming back to this position. This fight is one of the variations that of this joseki in the lower right, where black has instead of curling around at this point, which is the easier one, and white would probably continue this way. This is the relatively easy variation that I've been talking about most. When black does not do that, it changes to this variation. And when white continues to push, maybe black's going to play a hane on the left. Maybe white's going to counter that with a cut. This is the variation where it gets really, really complicated and exciting. And so I could talk about this one all day. I should probably stop here. And this is actually where I stop the variation at this point because further detail is just going to be very confusing for everyone concerned, so including myself. So something
We'll
like
save,
that
we'll
could
save that
actually
for the
happen.
book.
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah. Um, the other option is to push through here. This was actually very popular among professionals immediately after the various AIs came out because the whole variation here is sort of exciting. And black pushes here usually, after which white will jump out and play one peep. And you can sort of
Huh.
guess from this that white is, in some cases, white's going to throw away these 3 stones. And there's some variations where that actually happens. But when white has already played the peep, usually it's good for black to try to sacrifice some stones like this. So in this variation, black has sacrificed these 3 stones, and black has the initiative. At some point, black wants to play an Atari on the outside here, but there's always the question of where to play the co-threat. So black needs a good co-threat, would like to have a good co-threat to make that work. And black has this huge thickness here, which is hopefully going to make a moil here. And
Right.
so when you let the computers do it, white's going to dive in at some point, and it's going to turn into some huge fight. And this was actually pretty popular among professionals too. A lot of people were playing this and experimenting with it. It seems to be pretty close, a close fight. So just showing you that one instead of my usual star point attachment, which of course is also an option. But white slided in the game. When white plays this slide, it's already supposed to be bad for white. But this is the real mistake comes later. This is really very instructive to me. Black plays this move. This was played by humans a lot. It works as a ladder breaking move. Not well. I should correct that actually. It works in a way because if black plays this immediately, and we get the same position, actually the ladder works, but white gets this move free. So either here or maybe white will play the large knight. But this will be a nice ladder breaking move that white can play. It's just better to have that exchange in for black. And so this happens. And the funny thing is that we always thought that this was the good shape move. And black's going to capture white in the ladder, but white's going to get a ladder breaking move. So obviously this is a good exchange for white. White even has an open side here, right? So the side territory is going to be reduced. So that's what we thought. But all of that, I think it seems to be wrong.
Really? Really? Huh.
First of all, the idea of having this extra endgame move is probably just so insignificant to the computer because it's going to dive in anyway.
Sure.
And the ladder break is actually, in some cases, it's almost counterproductive because having a ladder break is not as valuable as this move that black plays to finish the ladder, which is mapping out black's moil here. This move that black has just played is actually a very valuable move. It's probably more valuable than the ladder breaking move that white could have played on the lower side. And so the fact that adding one move to this and getting rid of all of the bad odds of the ladder is so valuable means that leaving the ladder there was it wasn't a thing to start with. It wasn't worth it. So going back to this point, the suggested move, the bad Suji.
I was just wondering about it. It looks so crude, doesn't it?
It looks so crude. And white peeps here once and plays here. Black can stop it with the double hane. And white continues. At this point, like the computer programs, I was looking at it with Katago, I was looking at it with Leela Zero. There were all these moves that were suggested all over the place. Anywhere in this general area there were a lot of a lot of little pink spots there showing that there were potential candidates.
Right.
And the two programs did not come to the same conclusion, and they didn't really give much width in the point values they were giving, the values they were giving the various moves. So it's a very difficult position even for computer programs. I would probably need to do a lot more searches to figure out what the final answer was. And so I just chose the move that I would feel maybe this is going to work when I was playing. So this is the move that I would choose. I'm not even sure if it's, as far as Go AI is concerned, I'm not sure if it is correct. But I do like the way that this is working well with the attachment here at 15, because, for instance, if black continues here, white's going to curl around here. This stone at 7, the stone here, is working well with the whole thing and reducing most of the black potential in center of the board. Another important thing about this variation in the upper right is that usually in this Joseki, in the game version of this Joseki, black had a forcing move here,
Hmm.
and that's actually pretty important because in this variation, white has a forcing connection here at S13. That move at Q18 will not be forcing for black. So there's a big difference to what could happen in the upper side when white is invading a black moyo, for instance, on the upper side of the board. When white plays moves like N17 or something like that, the fact that the corner is more secure in this variation, white has some extra eye space in this area, some extra potential eye space, makes a big difference to what might happen in the upper side later. And the endgame, of course. Having that move at Q18 being a forcing move for black does make a difference to the endgame. So
So
all
it's
of this, it sort of partially convinced me that this crude move that looks so terrible is maybe it's okay to play that. And just looking at the score going down, I think let's see, it went down to immediately after playing this move. It went up to 63% for black.
yeah.
So that's a pretty big jump. It's about, although white, the computer programs did not like white sliding in the corner to start with, it's almost 10 points difference in percentage. So that's a big difference.
The
So
basic
after this, yes,
the basic concept in this, and it's quite different from the normal move here, is to take Sente and then just lightly reduce.
that's part of it. But that seemed to be what white was doing anyway. White did have Sente. I think the biggest difference is that black's outside wall is not so secure. White has options like cutting here and capturing one stone on the right side in some cases. With this peep at 3, white does have some, eventually will have potential to cut on the 4th line maybe. If white has a position on the upper side, maybe white can cut on the 4th line and start a fight there. I think the potential of a counterattack here is what is most important. The fact that black does not have that forcing move at Q18. And the fact that in this variation, there's no point to play a ladder breaking move. And black playing here is such a big move.
Wow.
And this becomes so difficult for me to grasp how the suggested candidate moves are going to work for white. It's just an impossibly difficult game for white to be playing at this point, for me at least.
Yeah, no.
And even if I look at the suggested moves, the candidate moves that the computer programs are giving me, I don't feel very happy with what's happening. And you're going to see this, you're going to understand as I show you some of the variations.
Okay.
White jumps in. This is the game variation. At this point, white played here. This was a kind of a shape move, maybe taking too much attention to these 2 white stones, maybe taking too much care of them. Looks like it was better for white to play here with a move at A, which would give white more or less a living shape on the right side. So there would be more eye space if white had played here. A very subtle difference though. It's already a very difficult game for white. This was a point where white played here and black played here. After this, it's just very bad for white. Like at this point, the game, it's 78% for black.
Well, White's really busy, right? I mean, he's got
White's
2
really busy.
now.
White doesn't really have enough territory to make up for the fact that black has all of these potential attacks going. Like black has some territory to attach to this group in the upper right. That's just going to make some territory sort of automatically. Black has about 20 points, can count on something like that in this area. If we look at white's area, there's that 3-3-point invasion in the upper left corner. So that's not territory yet. This is not territory yet. White's territory is all not defined yet. It means that while attacking, black will have opportunities to jump into these 3-3 points and take away white's territory. White doesn't even have a lead in territory that is going to last. So to go back to, at this point, I'm telling you it's 78%. And that means 18 points before Komi. It's hard to believe the difference here. Going back to moves, so the candidate move that I found from Leela playing here, actually both programs agreed that this was the only move for white, and black's going to play here.
Yeah, but looking
I
at
have to
that,
tell you, I have no confidence in being able to save this group.
oh, it looks
Uh,
terrible, doesn't it?
Something like this. Um, and in the book, I'll try to make some kind of a continuation here. It just looks very, very, even looking at the variations that were being shown, it was not really very convincing for me. So I'm going to have a tough time trying to find something that really works for this variation. White does, yeah, it's just very difficult. But the fact is that white had to play this capping move at one with a potential to start attacking black on the lower side with a move at h3, for instance. And so there is some potential there to get something back if white can live on the right side. Like that's the point where I would probably just break. But apparently, and you know, when I'm studying this kind of shape with the computer, I'm wondering how it's going to make a life. Sometimes it just plays away and plays some other part of the board, and it's very confusing. Does this mean that it's sort of giving up on that group, or what? So that's something I'll have to figure out in the
Wow.
future for this game. My conclusion at this point is this just impossibly difficult for white. And the game move makes a lot more sense to me, but I can also see that the game is very, very difficult for white at this point. Let's just go a few more moves.
Okay.
I'll show you how it got finished off. They started this ko here. Um, white had to play the ko to make a living shape, basically. And white managed to escape. But in this variation, after this, black starts to play away. Eventually, black's going to finish off the game by starting a ko here. So in the book, I'll show you how black sort of set up ko threats and then played this ko. And that was the finishing blow, basically.
Wow. It's interesting sort of variations on a theme, and we've seen that opening again and again and again. And it's almost like I was just thinking about Goldberg's variations, which there's a lot to it. Even though we've seen it again and again, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool to see how different people handle it. So
My take was like how sometimes in this game the score was so extreme that obviously black is good, but even when it's relatively close, quite often the computer programs can take you to places you don't really want to go.
hmm,
And this is an example of how difficult it would be for me, where the computer seems to think that there's still things that white can do. Um, I think that that's something you have to pay attention to when you're trying to learn how to play using the ideas given to you with these computer programs. Because
hmm,
sometimes they seem to be happy with some of the impossibly difficult variations.
right, right. We are only human after all.
Right.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Wonderful as always. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you all next game.